my stat sheet, considering they finished 9th place in their regular league against the 1st place NAL team. And it's like roles have switched. Both of these teams seemingly doing the opposite of what they did in their regular league here. And this is an opportunity for Oxygen to show us it was just a bad few days in the groups. And they were able to have that last 3-0 day to propel them into the upper bracket. First ban comes out. Are we surprised that it's a Thatcher ban? Not really. In fact, every time Empire's played Oregon the past few matches throughout the group stages, they've banned Thatcher every time.
Oh, here's an Ash ban from Oxygen. Okay, there, I see you, mate. And this is something they've done a couple of times. They did it against Space Station in the NAL, and they did it against MIBR in the Six Invitational groups. They also did it against Makers in the groups. So not something we've never seen. A lot of people do like to ban Ash against Empire to try and throw Joystick off his card. He ends up just going on the Hibana most of the time and destroying everyone anyway. So I don't know if that's going to have a massive impact in terms of comfort picks. But in terms of simply just reducing the amount of explosive utility on the attacking side, I could see that having some impact.
Especially on a map like Oregon, there's always going to be that shield play. We see it top floor, we see it bottom. A lot of the time he's been defaulting to Jackal nowadays as well. So he has quite an arsenal of operators he can take. And I know we're harping on about the Cyborg himself, but he'll start on Malusi. They're starting on the defense here and they've decided to go downstairs. That's an interesting one for me at the very least here because they prefer to go top floor for the most part, James. Statistically, they do prefer that top floor. So they're not going to give away the predictable site here. They're going to go downstairs instead. And as a result, they'll get rid of that Echo, bring the Kaid for the hatch. And now they'll be able to hide the fact that they've, one, got that Kaid to work with, of which Fox A is going to have to deal with the hatch now. And two, that they're starting downstairs.
Yeah, and for Empire, we have a quite strong operator lineup in terms of anchoring down. Almost all of these operators are really good for sitting on that bomb site, reinforcing your positions. We've got this typical shield in elbow. No doubt ADSs from Always will be there to protect. The Thatcher ban is going to make opening up the meeting hatch quite difficult, as Scyther will have an electrical on that. And overall, Empire pretty solid just anchor setup. So I think here, for me, the key thing is Oxygen making sure they have enough time to clear out this site presence after they go for a roam clear. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a bit of a loose roam from Empire, maybe Dan running around upstairs, maybe Always, but we will have to wait and see for that one.
You don't see a lot of Legion these days, just purely because there's other operators that take precedence over it. And the good thing for Oxygen, there was early drone set up. Kino was also droning very quickly on in, so they're able to make a very swift entrance. And I think this is what differentiated Oxygen from the first few days of groups to the last day of groups, where they absolutely stomped all of the teams they went up against, was the speed and the confidence at which they approached that particular game, or that day's worth of games. And that's something that we're seeing here, coming in, not letting Team Empire, being a really fearsome opponent, stop them from getting site and map control as quickly as possible. And Yoga, he had an absolute field day on the last day of groups. I'll bring up his stats shortly for you all, but for now, looks like the mid and top floor is all Oxygen's, and Empire, they're going to run the turtle strat to be able to deny this.
For me, one of the win conditions for Oxygen is the performance of their newbies, of their rookies. So we've got Kino, who plays the support, been arguably Rookie of the Year in the NAL. His opening round, he found an ace on Thermite. He's been pretty nuts overall. Yoga has been a name on our lips a lot in the Six Invitational so far. Really strong on the entries, really unhesitant as he pushes on forward. Both players came in as, this is their first real experience in Tier 1 or at like a major LAN event. They have played in Challenge League in the past, but of course the pressure can get to you if you don't quite have the experience. And of course we do have experience on the other Oxygen players and of course on Empire. So I'm going to keep my eye on how these two rookies do go.
You and I often talk about how a front push through Freezer down main stairs doesn't oftentimes work. Kino says, oh, let me slap the Cyborg off the earth very early on here. Really huge pick here. And that will be the opening kill going the way of Oxygen. And with 64 seconds left, they are making Empire sweat as they are dancing around. Dan, though, with the T5, he'll take a kill back for himself. And standing in the middle of Closet there for some reason is Scyther. And there is so much time here for Oxygen to work with, James, and I'm worried because as a result, they're just going to keep getting picks as Empire are throwing bodies left, right, and center.
Only the two rookies who have found picks so far for Oxygen. Shepard to hold on. Big player here on the big operator of smoke, but no gas babes remain. 25 seconds left. A big pick onto the support for Oxygen, and always jumps into the fray as well. 2v2 now as Oxygen have to go deep. Always has a long line of sight to contest Freezer, but it's up to Shepard on the bomb site to hold. Foxay to force his diffuser down. Yoga to cover, finds one. This is massive for Oxygen in the opening round. As that diffuser is planted, always going to have to make this a 3K in the 1 versus 2 clutch on the retake. 39 seconds left, long angle contested. Jaeger with the new recall, not going to be too much trouble for Always. Ran in the corner and Foxay wins the fight. Oxygen take the first round here on Oregon.
What a statement to make, James, coming in against one of the highest rated teams of the Six Invitational, especially in the upper bracket. We didn't even think Oxygen would make it out of groups after the first couple of days, nor did we think they would make it into the upper bracket. And with that singular round, they have set the pace for this enormous matchup between North America and Europe. And the big thing for me as well, you and I, we said, Yoga, what an impressive run throughout the groups. But there is a player who is also stepping up in Oxygen, and it's Foxay, who is 0.01 higher in rating. In fact, there are 2 players from Oxygen who have the highest rating when it comes to overall rating throughout the groups. Foxay is 3rd highest rated, behind Joystick and Palu, and then Yoga is 5th highest rated. There's 2 Team Liquid players, Joystick number 1, and then, of course, 2 Oxygen players in the top 5 throughout the groups. And so you are seeing some really big hitters in the lobby today. Rating overall, I mean, okay, yes, Joystick is running through them, but Yoga on the entry is 2nd throughout the entire Invitational. So it is not a surprise that he is entering the map quickly, smoothly, and confidently, because his stats show us he's not afraid of anyone when he enters a map.
To take a quick respite from this game, there is 1 minute left in the final round of BDS versus NIP on map 3, so you should quickly open up the A stream and watch that as it finishes, and then keep watching this. It has just finished, so I won't spoil the result, but a massive game there on the A stream as we just get started here in our second match of the B stream. Oxygen started very, very strong with that first round. Vertical and Yoga, 2 of those big fraggers for OXG, and they've made their way inside without too much trouble. Empire once again, full turtle strategy.
Interestingly, they're going to go back downstairs. They want to retry it. It's almost as if they know what they did wrong that round, and maybe it's throwing bodies that the problem was not the answer. You can't always fight fire with fire, and Empire have learned that the hard way in the first round. Sometimes I like to commend teams that go back to a site they just failed, because it shows me that they're clearly confident that they know what went wrong. But I also sometimes think it's a big failure because it gives the attacking team an opportunity to also work on any mistakes they had made. Win or loss, it doesn't matter. And Oxygen now, they have momentum behind them. So that's going to be a big key playing factor here for Oxygen, as we see players opening up all of the hatches. Not a Kaid in play again here, so these hatches are going to get done for free.
Nice usage of the Aruni gate, but Kino can easily dispatch of that with the flash. Still 5v5, a lot of time to work with. It's the pre-execute, which is key for Oxygen. Last time they found some very, very strong opening picks. We'll be looking to see how they can set up for this execute. Looks like they're actually tempted to go for a blue push this time with so many players around these rear stairs, trying to flush out Always from the bricks position.
It's almost impossible to adapt to your mistakes that you made last round if the attackers do a completely different push. This is what I was worried about. The flexibility, the adaptability here of Oxygen. That's what's going to give them the little bit of a leg up here on this round. They make good time of the map, but they don't hit their shots, and vertical falls yet again as the opening death for Oxygen. Always being able to capitalize on those backstairs. Get yourself a second, my friend, but those missed shots, they'll come back to haunt him later on as he is down tremendously over towards the pillar door, and he's holding it down by himself in a position you usually see one of his comrades, I'm going to call them, in the EUL. That's Shaiko spot, we call them. And as a result, now it is all up to Oxygen to get past these smoke babes as...
Foxay dropped.
Oh!
Now he's down, but traded out once again. Empire biting back for every single inch of ground that Oxygen take. 25 seconds. Does Oxygen wait? What is the execute here? Side that a hold on. Empire don't need to get aggressive here, but Shepard finds one, and all of a sudden it's shut down. Empire 3 for 3, and they find their first round.
I wonder whether or not that early time advantage that Oxygen had again. They were opening up all the hatches. They got meeting, they got freezer. They were in nice and quick, really good pre-placed drones, which propelled them into the building very quickly. And then there seemed to be a call, and I don't know if this happened during the drone phase or whether it happened mid-round, that they were going to rotate down towards blue, etc., get the back stairs. The problem with that, James, is when you do a back push like that, you need to start from the beginning of the round. It takes a lot of utility. Elbow hold is tumultuous to get past. You got to cook all the ADSs, destroy the shield. There's so much that goes into a blue push. It's why you see teams start there rather than on the other side of the map. It can oftentimes take way too long. And well, for Empire, they capitalized on it. Good set of kills. Look at all of those 2-2-2 kills on the side of Empire. It's only Joystick at the moment. The Cyborg himself is just waiting to warm on up into the match. We saw this happen during the group stages, didn't we, James, when he had a bit of a quiet first half and then he unleashed in the second. It was incredible. So I have no doubt for all of the Joystick fans out there, he will come alive very shortly. But for now, we will go to the top floor, which is Empire's most favorite site, somewhere they should be very, very comfortable going.
I like this Frost pick as well. We've seen a lot of teams do these aggressive holds here in Trophy. That is where the shield will be used. However, as opposed to a lot of the Latin American and some APAC teams, Empire's not going for a full extension in the closet. Mostly just putting their emphasis around Okay, 2 Frost mats in Mask is kind of strange. I feel like it would make sense if there was a mute jammer there, but like surely Oxygen are gonna spot those. Like this would have to be like a forced error from the Empire half.
Maybe that's what they're hoping for. Maybe they know that the rookies of Kino and Yoga and stuff like that, they've been going in ADS continuously as they enter the map. Think about Yoga when he was going over to the freezer door. He ran in and he was very confident. So you are right. It'll be the droners of the support players that are going to have to make sure they do their due diligence as they drone on in. They are in sneaky positions. You don't expect a Frost mat or 2 to be positioned in that way. And what a brilliant drone here from Foxay, nestled inside of that bomb chassis. That's going to be a brilliant one because they will surely get a freebie onto the shield over the top of the shelf. And guess what? Joystick will go down yet again. And he won't have an impact outside of his Banshees.
What a fantastic nade. And the drone works perfectly to net Oxygen. That opening, like you say, that's the Russian Cyborg gone down. And Oxygen are looking methodical. They're looking perfect. They have a line of sight breach on the closet wall. They have a line of sight deep into kids as Kino holds on. And Foxay looks like he's rotating over to Big Tower to put some pressure on the attic side. The only concern I have for OXG now is because they're so separated, if we start to see a couple of 1v1s tilt the way of Empire, this push that's set up nicely for Oxygen might not actually pan out so great.
We saw that during the rotate last round from Oxygen. Too many 1v1s meant the trades couldn't come through. As we have this white stairs hold from the Zofia, they still have utility to work with should they want to expel it, but with 60 full seconds left to play with, they don't have to rush this. They can take their time. Some grenades below wouldn't go afar either, and it's always to be there. He'll get droned out. And Vertical's the one that wants to get this control. It's not a C4, so they could leave it if they want to, but there are some vertical holes, so they need to be careful of it. And as this 1v1 surely ensues very shortly, the pinch will come in. That's the utility I was talking about. And surely he gets a second for the trouble as well, as Oxygen are making things work with all the time they have.
Such a good start here for Oxygen on this map. Their attack is clinical. It is perfect, and now a 1 versus 5 for Shepard. Doesn't matter how many smoke babes he's got. It's not going to stop Oxygen from copping a flawless round. Fantastic start.
Brilliant job here from Oxygen. I think you put it right, and I think you got ratted out on the pre-desk as well, is that it will either be a very, very close matchup or Empire will run away with it. Now, that's painting a very dark picture for Oxygen as well. There's no option there for Oxygen to run away with it, but that would be a scenario, that's the best storyline we can give you for an upset. Oxygen are an underdog for a runaway story. It is very unlikely on paper that they take this and they run with it, both this map and the future maps in this best of 3. So if they do start to get a leg up, they're starting to run away with these rounds, you will know you're witnessing something that should not, at least on paper, be occurring. So I'm all for a sort of underdog story like that. But the biggest thing for me right now, I was looking through over towards some of the stats for Team Empire and then, of course, for Oxygen. And I sort of said to myself, well, how does Empire usually fare on the defense? On Oregon, usually really, really well. But we know, as you saw on the pre-desk, Oxygen is an attacking-sided team overall. So it's not surprising that they are doing quite well on their attack when they usually do quite well statistically.
Yeah, and just to keep talking about expectations and Oxygen, we saw them come through as the bottom seed from their group into the upper bracket, whereas Empire were the first seed from Group A. And Oxygen, while their first game at SI was a 7-0 over Parabellum, that was fantastic, they had a really rough second day, and you know, for the middle part of that group stage, they lost MIBR, NIP, and TSM. Of course, now we know that all those 3 teams went through the upper bracket, and all 3 have been incredibly strong here. Spoiler alert, NIP just beat BDS over on the A stream, so they're definitely a strong team. So maybe those losses aren't too much to read into here for Oxygen. And then on their final playday, they're 7-2 Giants, they're 7-0'd Makers, and they won 8-7 over Space Station as well. So in the grand scheme of things, Oxygen actually had a pretty amazing group stage, the only team to find 2 7-0s, but they are a little bit hit and miss just because of the drastic differences in those score lines. So when we do look at Oxygen now, the reason we come in with lower expectations is because Empire was so dominant in Group 1. Oh, wow, hello, that is a massive impact trick. Is that every single Tara's pellet gone?
That is everything done and dusted. I'm so sorry to cut off your perfect monologue there, because I was just going to follow it with saying Oxygen is one of my favorite NAL teams in the world. And I am just mind blown that Kino decided to place them all rather than cook one first and then place the rest after. That is a rookie mistake. And that's going to cut them huge, as they now don't have an entry point. They don't have a line of sight. And this will come down to them hitting shots, and hitting shots he does. A bit of redemption story there, but that is a dangerous one. And Joystick's out again. Good shot from Vertical. He'll get his revenge, as he's been falling early each round. And Oxygen have been really good with the time here. We know they're an attacking-sided team, so they usually do well with it. But that was a big boo-boo.
That said, at the end of the engagement, Oxygen have the numbers advantage 4 versus 3. Laxing and Vertical together can pinch always downstairs, leaving just 2 players on the bomb site. So all things considered, no breach anywhere in terms of the hard breach on the kids wall from Big Window or the games wall. That doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. Oxygen are quite safe here. They've got some great map control as Vertical takes the top of White Stairs. Drones onto the site, pick downstairs, and honestly, it turns out that impact trick means nada as Oxygen find themselves in a 4 versus 2. War Shepherd almost loses his head. A gas babe to go over the top. And Scyther, where was that? He found the angle, but the plan's still going down. Kino should be able to make this work. No, he doesn't. He pulls off the plant. He's going to find the pick, though, onto Scyther. Shepherd to hold. 1v3. Kino's going to go deep and finds that final kill with the Bearing 9. And that is Oxygen once again. A big showing and 3-1 on the scoreline.
Seriously incredible stuff here from Oxygen. I can't believe that when they get to the site and they've already encircled it, I'm talking players are on white, players are on double window, ready to go. Shields have been destroyed. That player from underneath inside of that security area is dispatched off. They've still got almost a whole minute to work with. That time conservation from Oxygen is their biggest strength. They get in fast, their pre-placed drones are very clearly set, and they know what they need to do. This is why, and we cannot understate it enough, Most teams in the world are a defensive-sided team overall on maps. Oxygen are coming into the Invitational being one of the only teams to have a seriously high attacking ratio compared to their defensive. I was looking at Oxygen on Oregon specifically over the past, how many games have I sampled here? About 6 or 7 of them as a whole, and I was thinking to myself, well, does this also extend to Oregon? Is this something we usually see from Oxygen on Oregon as a whole? And I'm going to let you know here right now, James, they've been hitting about an exact 50-50 on what they win on attack and what they win on defense. They win almost exactly the same amount. I think it's maybe a 2% difference. That's it. So they are seriously a well-balanced team on Oregon.
Which bodes well considering the scoreline at the moment. Empire really need to get a couple more rounds in here. Best they can hope for is a 3-3 defense. To be honest, Jess, that doesn't seem like a great scoreline for me, especially considering we expected a lot out of Empire. I'd say 3-3 is pretty minimum for a defense half. So no, whatever way you cut this, Oxygen have had an amazing start. They've already exceeded par for the course. Once again, starting an early map control thanks to those pre-placed drones that you mentioned. The X factor we do have this time around is Oxygen on the Ying through Vertical. Now, Vertical himself has not had the greatest SI so far, but has been overall the star player for Oxygen throughout NAL Stage 1. And one of the leading factors as to why they managed to get first place. He's going to have to keep stepping it up here, especially on such a pivotal execution operator.
Well, in a moment where I thought Oxygen couldn't take this map control any quicker, they seem to be making it just a touch faster every single round. The big thing for me was when they tried to do that blue push, they didn't really leave enough utility and time to be able to dispatch of it. They tried to send these players 1v1, and they were too thinly spread out across the map to be able to trade anything. Maybe that is the biggest weakness, if Oxygen has one on attack, is being unable to trade players who send themselves on these solo missions throughout the mid and late round. Yoga's been one of them, but he hasn't really been missing, and when he does, it does tend to be in the late round. And now they're going to stick to this front take, but with the Ying in hand rather than a Yana, this can play really well. Cook those ADSs, send a couple of Candelas in through the hallway and the closet in the rotate, and Kino's going to confirm that there is ADSs. They'll cook it, they'll get it ready, and surely they start sending out those Candelas.
A matter of time before it happens. Foxay pushing Freezer, has Yoga to support. Util comes out. Where is the execute? Vertical, we're looking at him, we're waiting for him to put down those Candelas, as this is a slow and steady push. Oxygen waiting for that peak, waiting for that pick. Vertical equips the Candelas, out they go. First one caught by an ADS, that ADS burned. Second Candela cooked out, but Vertical shut down. The trade comes through from Kino as he starts to go deep. No, he plays a shallow plan. And Empire, do they have information? Kino forced off the plan as he pulls back, but what a shot there from Joystick. It is all on Foxay right now. So much util still, and the Russian Cyborg locks out the final kills. Empire hold down their basement defense.
There you go. That's the power of the Elder in the hands of Joystick. And do you remember when he used to bring the Spud gun on Oregon specifically back in, what was it, stage 2 of 2020 season? I mean, it was incredible the kinds of things that he was doing with that. And he was doing a lot of soft breach with it. He's placing his Evil Eyes and he was still getting kills. So doesn't matter what primary weapon he holds, he seems to dominate the Maestro role specifically on the downstairs, and he's been doing so for about a year now. So not a surprise to see him on that, but good to see that he's now entered the scoreboard, entered the fray a little bit, and I guess ending this half on a 3-3, you're right, it really doesn't reign superior. Not for the kind of hyping up that we've been giving the audience about Empire. It makes Oxygen definitely seem far superior to them. But again, as they move over to kitchen and dining, they'll see whether or not they can make this work. And given that there are teams that only go kitchen or dining or only go kitchen and meeting, be interesting to see as I scroll down to my stats here. Oh, am I on the right team? Oh, James, this is an interesting one. They almost always go meeting and kitchen. They almost never go dining and kitchen. I wonder what they've got up their sleeves here.
it's funny because looking at this operator lineup, looking at the fake setup here from Empire, I'm not seeing anything that's reinventing the wheel. This is not an unusual setup. This is fairly typical. I guess a little bit modern. I think that maybe Joystick is going for a Showers Halt here with the impacts to impact Trick NEX Kairos on the wall. It looks like that's the idea at the minute, but not going to be that effective against a Hibana. Honestly, like, I feel like I'm still kind of stuck in 2020 with this bomb site teams and really figured out how to attack it. And okay, well, throw everything out of the window along with the kitchen sink if Kino, the hard breacher, can go down first up thanks to Dan.
That is such a huge pick again. It's like when they impact tricked all of those X-Kairos on the closet wall. This time, they get the body with it and the X-Kairos. Quick pick from Joystick, won't net a kill. But as they drone out his position here, they are stuck for what they can do. They can get the Maverick torch on the wall and try and provide a line of sight. But that puts you in a heck of a lot of danger. And with these drones starting to encircle Empire now, it's up to Oxygen. How do they want to deal with this? Maybe they could overwhelm him, but with the crossfire from Dan and the shots coming out, it looks like that was not the answer. They needed that hard breach to open up lines of sight. They didn't get it, and now their bodies will lay cold on the floor as they are rethinking exactly what they're going to do for this round.
Dan, the man, is hungry. Vertical. He needs to step up here in the 2 versus 5. Oxygen don't have a lot to work with. Drone goes on out. Vertical still has 2 in play, but Laxing has nothing. Couple still in the field. That default camera taken out now. Vertical knows he has some ground to take. The Showers is in the way of Oxygen. 2 players left for them, though, and they'll have to set up for an execute. But Jess, with Empire not really giving them anything, this is going to be very difficult. Even should Oxygen get this plant down, a retake is so viable here for Empire.
No need to overstep your mark when you have a 3-man advantage here. Oxygen is hoping that they give them something, but it's very, very unlikely. You can see Joystick's wrapped all the way around, through moving, back around into kitchen. And as they start shooting these drones, no matter where they confirm them, they're going to have to take this as a duo here. They have to team engage these players. A little bit of a peek here, and Vertical's hoping that he'll be able to catch the head of the dock. Yes, he does. That's a beautiful shot there. Laxing gets one. Oh, where's this numbers advantage going, James? I was just complimenting them for being able to play passive here, but it's seeming like that is getting lost in translation.
Oxygen now rotate over. They want to go for a table plant. They spot out the black eye, need to take that down, so there's no advantage in terms of the information for Empire. And here comes the execute. But that's the denial from Joystick. A massive pick, safe behind the deployable shield as Vertical goes in, finds one. Looking for the trade now is Shepard. And Empire tie up their half, 3 rounds apiece.
It was a bit of a scary end to that round. The last 30 seconds were rather dire for Empire as they started throwing bodies at 2 very capable players. That does end the half, and, well, it did end like you expected, a 3-3, but doesn't really give me full confidence in Empire just yet. It seems like they've been warming into the match, and we said this about BDS multiple times throughout the EUL Stage 1 of this year. And of course, throughout some of the group stages as well, is that sometimes even a Lems would say it would take them a while to warm up into a match. I'm wondering whether or not that's happening to Empire here, or whether Oxygen are just really ripping them apart on the attack. They've had a pretty damn good win percentage on their attack overall, so I'm not surprised. This is where Oxygen will be tested, though. They don't usually perform as well on their defense, but they've got a pretty good 50-50 rate on this map, so we might be surprised.
What can we expect here out of Oxygen? That advantage 3-1 that they had is slowly slipping away. And as they turn onto their defense, we see quite a significantly different interpretation of this bomb site with far more deployable shields. In fact, Goyo brings 2, Smoke brings 1, Ella brings 1. That's a crazy number of deployable shields, especially considering Oxygen banned out that Ash, which is 3 explosives. We're really looking at Empire having those 2 nades from Maverick, 2 more from Sledge, and then the 2 explosives from Zafir. That is literally the only util that can clear out those 6 pieces to deal with 4 shields. So Empire need to make sure they don't have a lot of redundancy there. They need to make sure they're effective and efficient.
Well, surprisingly enough, all of those ADSs are over towards that laundry rotate. None of them will persist over towards elbow, and that's where you would usually expect them to be, considering I believe there's a player sitting right behind the go-go shield out of all the shields in elbow, and if that explodes in your face, well, that's a painful day. Foxay will be the one to stand here, and that's a very interesting setup. They clearly understand that Team Empire are likely to push front, or they're likely to be tossing a lot of their utility through the freezer line of sight, maybe, to get rid of that shield. I'm not sure what they're expecting here, but whatever it is, this is a clear counter to how they expect Empire to be pushing this one.
No contest whatsoever as of yet. I think Oxygen are really leaning into the late game of having these advantages behind these deployable shields. Just you look at not only all those 4 deployable shields, but also the 3 Banshees from the Malusi. Like, you do some simple maths here. Empire do not have enough explosives to clear out all of the bulletproof utility that Oxygen have brought, so they have to get a bit creative. They have smokes on joystick to work with. You talked about how powerful he is on the Jackal. Nice usage there of the X-Kairos to somewhat flush out Kino from that bricks position, but still, I'm pretty confident in Oxygen setups. I really like the strat that they have formed. I really like the mental idea. And those 3 ADSs are chewing up those flashbangs, but it doesn't matter because Empire played that perfectly. A good drone, and out comes the utility. 2 of those shields are down.
That is such a brilliant use of their utility. You're so right. And they were able to get 2 of the shields that were going to be the first problem for their ingress should they push through the front. Not sure why they were so focused on pushing through and getting rid of those shields when it looks like an entire rotation has occurred towards the back. And with less than 60 seconds left, last time Oxygen tried this, it was a big issue. They didn't have enough time. They didn't have enough utility. And Foxay has already picked up his shield, I believe, or replaced it. So it's not going to be an elbow for him to use. This is just going to come down to frags.
There's the opening pick. Foxay. Hello, C4 goes out. Doesn't find anything. Oxygen still sitting safely, and the Shepherd's nade somehow gets Foxay. But he's left on his lonesome. 1 versus 3, and time whittled away. Empire couldn't find much. Shepherd's made it a 1v2, but doesn't check Harry Potter. Checks up the stairs. That's not where Harry Potter lives. And Vertical punishes him for not being a fan of one of our most beloved teenage books.
Well, that's where the magic happens for Oxygen, is that bringing that momentum from the first half of doing really quite well on their attack onto their second half. That's something that I truly think is hard to do from one half to the other, especially when you're a one-sided team. And I'm not saying that Oxygen is always an attacking-sided team, but overwhelmingly they tend to do quite well on it. I do think that that is a difficult thing to come over, reset yourself, go onto your defense, and then show that you can also do so on a more passive-aggressive basis rather than an aggressive one. And I think they've really shown us here that this is their map pick for a reason. They are prepared. And those 3 ADSs, of which clearly Team Empire wanted to get rid of, that showed me they knew exactly where the utility would come from Empire. So I do think Oxygen are very prepared.
Yeah, the funny thing is I do find it a bit interesting that Empire spent all that effort and util clearing out the shields on the front side towards Freezer and Laundry, right? And then Empire suddenly go for a blue push. It's like, what? Like, come on, you just invested all this time and effort onto pushing this one side, and then you completely rotate, ignore that. I feel like maybe some commitment there would have helped out Empire.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that part of that round was won in the operator select and the operator veto phase. I think that I do want to give Oxygen some credit, banning that Ash and then running, a lot of bulletproof utility, 7 pieces. That is really smart. But Empire definitely could have played around it better.
We'll see whether or not Empire have what it takes to get their first attacking round on this second half. They'll move over and do pretty much exactly the same kind of switch that we saw from Oxygen. They like to go through small tower or across, make sure they get a bit of control, and then also take a bit of that kitchen, maybe dining control, make sure there's no C4s or anybody likely to run up behind them on the white stairs should they put some aggression there. a lot of drones coming out from these players, and I don't want to say that necessarily Oxygen has the more superior pre-placed drones, but it's very clear that Oxygen getting in the first 20 seconds shows how good their droning has been, which has usually been an uncommon phrase when you link it to North America as a whole. But as the past year or two has gone on with the North American region, their intel gathering has been very, very good. That's why we're seeing such a really strong attack from Oxygen, and Empire yet to replicate that just yet as they open up Attic, get their default lines of sight and crouch hole in. Now they're gonna have to deal with more and more shields again.
I'm loving this Goyo play here from Oxygen, especially not just paired with the smoke, the shield, but also the Malusi. I like the way that that drone was thrown through the mute jammer, but of course it was shot anyway, so it didn't matter. And that's a nice nade. No ADS to protect. Curious decision. I wonder where those ADSs must be stacked. Then it looks like two. No, that's a. Is that a Banshee or an ADS? I can't tell on my feed. The blue light is all I can see. There's one top white stairs in Canadian's favorite spot. There's one on the big window, and I think that must
has to be one. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't tell from my feed.
Well, they do get one shield, and with 60 seconds left, there's still multiple still standing. I heard another grenade pop out, but no shield fall as a result. And as they're trying to make it rain around the Oxygen players, they're being starved for that said Oxygen. As they slowly enclose, it's still a 5v5, only a little bit of damage done to Vertical. And as he hears this grenade rip, he might be able to challenge on. But Dan is the only one over towards Attic to get that pinch push, so it's very important he wins this engagement.
And these mute jammers are just making it so hard here for Dan as he decides to dry peek this, but he finds the shot anyway, almost gets a second. So keen here with the ARX as Empire are shaping up for a push. 20 seconds left on the clock, and this is all happening all here right now. Dan's found another one as Joystick shoots out that C4, keeps himself alive a little bit longer. He goes deep into the side. Yoga taken down. Empire have exploded, but Oxygen are holding on. Foxay in pit. He's the last one left. He's made this a 1 versus 2. Pushing through the smoke. Can he deny the plant? He rounds the corner, but Joystick for the cover keeps Empire in this game, and they take back this even Steven 4-4 round counts.
We love a close game, James. This has been absolutely brilliant, especially since we got in the second half where I said Oxygen would be mostly tested. You saw the mute's body there at the end. They put him to bed in the bottom bunk as well. And while we're on the topic, do you prefer the top bunk or the bottom bunk, James? Because I'm a top bunk kind of gal. You know, I like to have the view from the top all the way over. Or did you never have a bunk bed growing up?
I actually at one point I had a bunk bed on top of a desk, so it was like the desk below and the bunk bed on top. It was cool until I became 6'3" and I would bump my head even just trying to sit up in bed on the roof of the ceiling. So that was not fun. At that point, I was like, all right. Also, you know, being quite a long boy makes things difficult when you're in a single bed. So, yeah.
Good. Well, I'm glad we cleared that up. I just needed to know.
All the viewers were very interested by that.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Nevertheless, it's just a bit of fun as we're back and forth in this matchup between Empire and Oxygen. Still unknown as to who is going to take this map. If you're curious, this was a map pick for Oxygen. So it is a map that they're hoping to walk away with comfortably, because as we get on throughout this series, it is very likely that not only will Team Empire warm up, they do tend to take a little bit to get into some of their matches, but they will be on a map that they themselves have picked and therefore seemingly are going to be more comfortable on. And did you see what Vertical did just there? It was very minor and the viewers might not have picked it up. But what Vertical did was got on the default cam, saw where the players spawned, and then replaced the ADSs as to where the spawn occurred from those particular players to work out where the push would be coming from. That is intensely smart. That is adaptability and flexibility there from Oxygen, and I love to see it.
The little things, isn't it? We see the very best teams in the world. They do so much, and every single move is calculated. But Empire, their execution was just too much better in that previous round. It's Joystick looking to push up the white stairs again, laying down the groundwork of this roam clear below the bomb site to make sure that he has free reign to do so. As he checks the kitchen now, as we see two players from Empire, Dan and Shepard, to take control of tower. Dan keeping an eye on that flank as Shepard moves on in. He's going to be making short work of this attic wall, just like we saw last time, Jess. Now, my question is, Empire they've just attacked this bomb site. Oxygen lost it. What's Oxygen going to do differently this time?
I mean, realistically, they took a couple of gunfights there that were not going to bode too well for them. They weren't in a win condition for them, and I think that's something that they will have learnt this time, is that when the site is opening up around you and you're starting to get pinched, I mean, that's when you need to keep your calmest. You don't need to try and take engagements that would be a little bit too difficult, and I think that's what Empire were hoping to push out of Oxygen. They did. They made them take gunfights that put Oxygen at a disadvantage. And that's all that came down to there. They had a bit of time on their hands as well, as Oxygen showed us in the first half how well time can bode when you're able to circle the site.
A bomb has been located.
Still no ADS is protecting the shield that was in Attic, and of course that did mean that it was so easy for Empire to clear it. Good information gathering by the Yana Gemini as Vertical takes that down, and Shepard also cutting off a nice position. Kino is pushed all the way back as Cyther starts to make short work of this kid's bedroom floor, and does not realize that Kino is sitting on top of that little cabinet. Kino takes refuge on top of the reinforced hatch, but this vertical pressure coming through from Empire is a really nice way of clearing out this position. But as of yet, Empire have done well to dodge it.
Oh, this could be a brilliant nade. They know he's there. It's the only safe spot to sit, but with a double ADS on the wall and it bounces off the shelf, or rather the bunk bed. He is in complete safety here. They're wasting so much time on him, but look at all these smokes, whether it's the smoke of the attack or the smoke babes of the defense. They want to get this plant down, and they've got huge numbers advantage. They're being choked out now, James, and with 5 seconds left, they have to get the plant down. Always is almost done. Stop it now! It's an Oxygen round! And out of nowhere, in a complete man disadvantage for Oxygen, all it took was a peek through the rotate, stopping Always, getting the plant off. And that round was so incredibly close as Empire leaves it 3 seconds too late.
Oh my God, Vertical. I've ragged on him a little bit this series so far, but man, he comes through when it matters. What was that, a 2v4? And Vertical comes through and saves the game and saves that round for Oxygen, retaking the lead as well for the North Americans. A massive, massive moment there for Vertical. And on the back of that, Oxygen take a tactical timeout.
Even after you get a round win, you want to make sure you're putting yourself in the best stead for what could possibly be the last 2 rounds of this matchup. They are 1 round away from match point. They're also 1 round buffer from Empire and even Steven, as you would call it, James. And my biggest question from that round was not what Oxygen was doing, not them winning, losing their ones again. It was, why did Always plant in such a precarious position? He had the whole shelving of that bunk bed to hide behind. He could have gone even deeper if he wanted to. He could have played corner where there was a player covering. I mean, a lot of questions there, and maybe it came down to time. Maybe the team was saying, play it, and he just held F where he was standing. Whatever the question or whatever the answer might be to that one, Empire are going to be feeling worse for wear, but they themselves get a little bit of a timeout now as well to talk through what's been going wrong for them on the attack after losing that one.
Yeah, for me, the way that the meta has evolved for attacking that Dorm's bomb site is really interesting, because it used to be very much directional. You would either take master in through closet to execute games with a little bit of pressure from Attic, or you would take like a big window and up white stairs. And maybe you would have some elements elsewhere, but it seems like these days, the way a lot of teams attack that Dorm's bomb site is just everywhere, like a little bit everywhere all at once. That's exactly what Empire did. A player up white stairs, a player Attic, a player trophy, a player on big window. It was just so crazy. And I think that what fell apart then is because Empire were quite spread out, as soon as Shepard went down to Vertical, Shepard was the Maverick who was trying to cover that planter. As soon as he was taken out, there was no one to cover that. There was no one protecting the poor planter, just sitting there holding F. And of course, that meant that it was really just a 1v1 for Vertical. All he had to do was land that shot onto the planter. Empire could not control it. And as a result, this is kind of a turning of the tide here, Jess, as Oxygen have retaken the lead. After a strong 3-3 attack, they've now found 2 defenses and can head back down to Laundry, which they got successfully in the opening round of this half.
Oh, there's a bit of a roam possibility there from Yoga. They've opened up that attic wall for a rotate, and the biggest thing that has changed here for Empire is they're bringing the Ying. Now, a problem for them, at least in the mid to late round, is we don't really know where they want to execute from when they're pushing bottom floor. You know, they seemingly get rid of shields on the front, rotate to the back. That successful one over throughout the front stairs and then through Freezer. That was an impressive one, but whether or not they repeat that or not, they don't want to be predictable. And I think that's the biggest thing, is that they need to make sure that they are pushing themselves into a win condition, and that win condition will be them having enough time to deal with the utility, be able to, of course, deal with the plant, which they're not seemingly ever getting down. They're not in a position to ever get a plant completely finished, and that's something they need to change here. And I can't even work it out now with their silhouettes where the push is going to come from. It just seems that they're trying to suss out, open everything up, and then choose mid to late round.
One thing I do like, though, for Empire with this attack is the way they've modified their lineup compared to the start. Now, of course, remember that very first round, they had, what, 6 explosives, I believe it was, to 7 things that needed to be exploded, just to put it for Oxygen. And the way that Empire have changed things up, they've got joystick off the Jackal, which I think is good. You know, it might be a comfort pick for him, but they really do not need that extra roam clear. I don't think they need the smokes either. So they now have that Zafir stayed in the lineup, and Dan has brought the Yana, which is an extra 3 explosives. The X factor, though, is Scyther on this Ying. And I'm really curious as to how effective he can be with this execute.
Well, Foxay will give up elbow, and that's about half the round that he decided to stay in there. No one to push him just yet, but he might be reinforcing it off a little bit too early, as Empire have seemingly not made the decision as to where they want to push. Always is on the E-box hatch, and so is Scyther with those Candelas you were just referencing. So it looks like most of the players are aiming towards the back here. Kino will be that first line of defense if they do choose to go through blue, but it does look maybe a back stairs, a hatch drop. Shepard's finally rotating over, and Kino with a shotgun close range could be seriously dangerous. He'll swing onto him. He wants the engagement. He knows he's alone for now. And as Shepard stands up, he'll get what he's asking for.
There's the opening pick, of course. Kino getting nice and aggressive here. Cutting the Candelas for Scyther. Caught out by the Yellow Mine. Caught out by Foxer. And Empire on the back of that have made this work always. Standing outside blue bunker, the last one remaining. And Oxygen can sit back and relax, as always has absolutely no chance. And Oxygen have taken 3 rounds of their defense, and alongside that, match points.
Ooh, nice little shot there at the end with the Scorpion. Nevertheless, you are right. This is a scoreline I didn't predict in any way, shape or form. I did have a sneaky suspicion that given the results of Oxygen on the last day of groups, that they were really feeling their groove. They are the first place NAL team for a reason. They didn't just get there via luck. And so if we are to really say that North America is one of the best regions in the world, and we are now watching one of their best teams that they currently possess, then it's not beyond us to say that, yes, they seemingly are going to be putting out the results that we expect of a first place NAL team. Going up against Empire, who, okay, in their regular season have been showing some really poor results. They ended up 9th in stage 1, which is 1 away from dead last place. But they came into the group stages seemingly reignited, reinvigorated. And for Oxygen to take map 1, which is their map pick, I think you're right. I think this will end up being a really, really close series throughout this map and beyond.
Yeah, well, like I'd alluded to, and I think Xenox mentioned it in the pre-show, the way I saw this game before it all started at 0-0, I see either Empire take this in a convincing match if Oxygen don't show up like they did in the end of groups and played a little bit more like the start of groups, or it's a close game and Empire probably win it. Well, at the moment, it's shaping up to be an Oxygen win here on Oregon. Of course, we still have 2 maps to come. Clubhouse will be Empire's map pick, and we're definitely guaranteed to go there. Should we get all the distance, it will be Coastline as our decider. But right here on Oregon is where the fight is really going down. Oxygen really demonstrating their power here on Oregon. Really impressive, the way that they've managed to hold on to this defense. And honestly, it just hasn't been a great day for EU overall, Jess. We might have held this in Paris, but you know, the French lost their opening game to NIP, BDS falling despite everyone's predictions. And here it looks like Empire are perhaps damned for the same fate.
Well, if you look at Oxygen's current defensive setup, it is redundancy after redundancy after redundancy. And what I mean when I say that is look at all the vertical holes that they've got to help support the players who are roaming upstairs. Look at the pre-placed C4s and the Valkyrie can. That's a freebie. Hit it. Oh, good night.
So
Sleep
good.
tight. Always. You'll always die if you get a C4 under your feet. And unfortunately for Empire right now, Oxygen, when I call that redundancy and they've got everything ready to go, it's a story that writes itself there, James. They cannot get in unless they deal with all of these different moving parts that Oxygen have set up.
Yeah, and for Empire now, that means they won't have a hard breach on the board. Except for the Maverick, which of course is a little bit more risky to use. Not so great for those long lines of sight. Dan and Joystick together to pinch onto the kids' dorms. That's a great C4. Dan looking to get aggressive on the back of it. Lovely shot, threads the needle and takes down Vertical, but Joystick still cold on the grounds. And Dan looking for another, doesn't have information on Attic, uses the concussion to clear it out. Thinks it might be clear, but has to face check it anyway. And of course, there is a rotate in the back, so he's constantly going to be cautious of his flank. But Oxygen are just sitting tight on the bomb site. A player still in kids' dorms as well.
Do they know that they're about to get peaked? Surely they do. All right, there we go. Concussion confirms there's one more player upstairs. And Dan, yet again, he'll get a double for the trouble. And as he is swapping back and forward over to Attic, over to dorms, he's trying to protect the players who are getting those verticals. And oh no! We were talking about pre-placed C4s, but those pre-placed Capcan traps, they'll get you, and get you they do, as Empire are falling to so many different utility pieces, whether it's those traps, those C4s, etc. And Joystick, he just wants in on site. He's sick of dealing with the top floor. And now it's going to be up to these three players. A missed opportunity, but finally he capitalizes. And with about 15 seconds left, it is up to Laxing and Kino, who are in really good stead.
Kino's been such a key player as he finds Joystick. Shepard in the 1 versus 2 for the map. Oxygen have looked so good, and they're going to hold on here on their map pick. Kino taken down, but the Banshee does not let Shepard through. Oxygen take their map pick of Oregon.
An unexpected scoreline here for the people who thought that Team Empire would absolutely rock the upper bracket. Looks like we will have to flip the script here for the viewers, as Oxygen will take their map pick here on Oregon. It's a best of 3 though, so for all the European and CIS fans out there, do not worry. There's still more opportunity here for Empire to redeem themselves. But for now, this is the Oxygen story being written right in front of our eyes. And I have to say it here, because there were no rehosts and that scoreboard at the end was legitimate. There was not a single player on the side of Oxygen that didn't have a helping hand, at least in the kill department. And as we get that match summary later on, I guarantee you there'll be a lot more story to be told.
Well-deserved MVP for Kino, second from